first we're going to add some water, because remember, hot press is thirsty. And then I'm going to lay in some quinacridone gold, Quin Gold, and just gently, and I slowed this down so that you could see in real time how I lay it in. Again, my brush is just very gently gliding on the paper to cover in that space. Okay, and then I'm going to just puddle in my rose just in those spots that are really fleshy, or I put them in where there's going to be some shadows, because this is how I map out my face with color. I'm kind of following the lines that I had drawn when I was mapping my drawing, and then I kind of let the watercolor blend it as much as it wants to. I keep in mind that it's going to all work out and it's going to dry a little lighter. So I have plenty of, what's the best way to put it? Plenty of time in the future to continue building up my color. I'm also just making sure it blends in around the area, because everything outside of the face will be darker. So it doesn't matter if those colors are there. I'm now going to drop in my cools, which is going to be my phthalo blue. And there's two different kinds of phthalo blues. There's the red shade and the green shade. Green shade is much cooler, and that's the one I'm using. Again, I'm just kind of puddling it in, dropping it just, you know, as if you were tapping a feather into a pool of water, very gently. Okay, I'm being very thoughtful about where that is going, because I know that that is an extreme color and I don't want it to overpower too much, and I want to make sure it blends in with my rose. That gives me a violet of sorts. Grab a little bit more for the neck, and you can see that it's puddled. I dried off my brush and now I'm just moving it around using the tip of my brush. There's plenty of paint there. I don't have to get more to fill it in. It's always better to start lighter, because you can't get lighter after this once it's dry. You can only get darker. And get that hand in. Same process. I start with my yellow, I go in with my red, and I add a little bit of my blue. I'm going to test the paper for dampness. It's going to be a little damp, but as long as it doesn't feel wet. I've already pre-mixed my colors from my 3 primaries, and now I'm going to use the darkest warm colors. I'm going to go in and start building up those shadow areas. Like before, I put the color in, and then I rinse my brush out, dry it on my towel just a bit, and then I go in and start pushing it around ever so gently. You'd be amazed at how much paint sits in that brush. Grab a bit more paint, get into those areas. I am also looking at my reference this whole time. Even though I have the reference drawn, I've mapped that image out. I like having the visual where those shadows are. Sometimes I get so lost in what I'm painting that I'm not paying attention to the lines on my paper. Again, messy is okay in this stage. It can get really taxing and become mud very quickly if you try to control the watercolor at this point. Just let it do what it wants to do. You already have your colors, you know they work, so trust in that. And if something goes severely wrong, it's not going to be catastrophic, because the color palette that you're using is all coming from the same 3 colors. So every color I'm using from my pre-mixed paint that you see putting on the paper all comes from the same three colors: the gold, the rose, and the phthalo blue. This is also a form of negative painting where I'm only painting where I want my darks. Where I want my lights, I pretty much leave untouched. And that's where those yellows and those soft pinks from the rose are. It's amazing how detailed you can get with that brush. And then go in, do the same with the hands. And puddles. Dry out the brush, move them around. I feel like I'm more in control of my water when I do that. Then I'm going to pull up my rich cools that I had pre-mixed. So those are going to be more of the violets. I'm going to bring in the rose again, but the rose itself is a cooler red, so it works as a cool. And then up against the violets and blues to get some really rich darks. Only placing them where it really needs that value. I'm not worried about how much it bleeds. Let's say when I'm painting, I get a bleed, just like there. What happens is it gets a bit puddly and it spreads out and it looks like a spider. So I'm gonna dry off my brush, any excess paint in it, as you can see. And then I'm gonna go in and just gently lift it, right? And then I'm gonna go back. After I've picked up some of that paint, I'm going to drop it off on the towel, come back, pick up some more. Remember, the brush is a sponge. It's designed to hold water. Anytime you run into that problem, just blend it all in. While I wait for the face to dry, I'm going to do the hair. And once the face is dried up a bit, after doing the hair, which is about 5 minutes, even though this is sped up and it seemed like 5 milliseconds, I can go in and start adding a bit more of my final glazes. I'm using the gold because gold and violet combined gray out, so they feel further away. Great for shadows. It's a way of creating a cooler skin tone when you gray out your colors using complementaries. Bring my cools back in. So the rose, remember, is a cooler red. And when it's mixed with the violets and the blues, it goes further back in space. Warms always come forward, cools always go back. And that's how we get that dimensional look. sometimes I feel like I don't push it enough, so I'll go in another round. It's okay to take baby steps, especially when you're starting out. This has taken me a long time to get confident. I can tell you, it's okay to go extreme. You'll learn it faster. The more extreme you go and the more you challenge. And if it turns into mud, that's okay. Set it aside, say, I learned a lot from that one. I guarantee you the next one will be better. We're not trying to make beautiful pieces of artwork that are going to be presented in a magazine. We're learning. Give yourself the grace. So as you can see, it's just a whole bunch of little glazes on top of one another. And I'm not using one color to build up my darks. I'm using multiple colors. Flesh has multiple layers of different colors. Therefore, that's how we should paint it as well.